I've always wondered about these plaques at the side of the road, commemorating battles that no one talks about anymore. This plaque remembers a battle that happened over 100 years ago in Inch, outside of Gorey, north of Wexford, where one person died. I wanted to find out more.
The Inch ambush occurred during the War of Independence. This was a chance for the North Wexford Brigade, the Flying Column. These were the active service unit, probably about 25 men, to strike a blow against the RIC and make a few bob.
The unit involved in that was known as the North Wexford Brigade Flying Column. So flying columns are essentially mobile military units. Their main aim was to harass the British forces constantly. The Flying Column, they were also known officially as Active Service Units, ASU for short, and they were constantly on the move, doing various raids, ambushes, and they're primarily made up of men that were on the run, men who couldn't stay at home or stay in any one place for a long period of time.
The Wexford Flying Column set out to ambush a lorry that was travelling to Gorey via Inch with money to pay the wage of officers in the RIC. Local men volunteering to the IRA, known as Scouts, helped the Flying Column travel to and set up the ambush site.
And the final two Scouts at Kinelear was a John Sheridan and another Cavanagh man, and they would have led them into the final position up over what's called Manus Rocks. If you're ever going to Inch from Gorey, where the monuments are to the 1798 and the 1916, they're all there. There was a high sort of a cliff on one side, or I've been up on it, it's about 50 foot, about 40 foot above the road. So they would have gathered along there, 25 in all, spaced out over 5 to 10 yards each, armed with rifles and shotguns.
They chose the ambush site because you had a high point which they could look down and ambush any people down below, and also there were several bends in the road. So once they crossed one bend, they weren't able to see what was in front of them, and they could block the road, and it was just very suitable for an ambush.
As well as having the usual artillery of shotguns and rifles, they also brought a more explosive and deadlier weapon.
They also had a landmine made by a man called Daniel Byrne. Now the landmine they had intended to place on the road so that when the lorry drove over, and then that would have caused all sort of mayhem. But the ambush coincided with the day there was a fair on in Gorey, so they decided not to use the mine because they just didn't know who was going to cycle into the trap or drive into the trap. So they were in position probably from early morning, but by 11 o'clock there was no sign of this patrol coming, so there was talks about calling this off. So 12:30, just about to give the whistle to go, lads, get back home because it's getting late in the day now. And but as they were about to go, one of them spotted an RIC cycle patrol of 5 to 6 officers who were coming from Culgraney via Inch onto Gorey to probably do their shopping, but they would have been armed. So there was the Sergeant Dolan was first, then there was another constable, and then there was a young auxiliary constable called Frederick Dupree. He was an English chap and he'd been stationed in Gorey, but now he was in Culgraney, and then there was 2 more to the rear. So when these lads cycled into, we call it the kill zone, somebody fired the first shot, probably a little bit early, so the last 2 didn't quite get into it, but the 3 that were in the centre, they took the majority of the fire. The sergeant was hit in the leg and in the wrist. Dupree was shot in the chest, but they still managed to get into a ditch by the side of the road and return fire. And eventually I think the local unit had decided, well, we've done enough now, or we didn't come for what we wanted, but we've got something else. So they whistle went, they withdrew, firing stopped.
Column quickly moved off because that was their tactics, hit and run. And they were also much aware that the garrison in Gorey, which came with armoured cars and everything else, was on their way back out. But the interesting thing about the Inch ambush is that that single event was like a domino effect that led on to several other incidents in the county afterwards.
The other 2 had got back to Inch, signalled either Arklow or Gorey were after running into an ambush. From there, the lorry load would have come out and went searching for these lads, but these were gone. But this young Dupree, on the day he was being returned, his body was being brought back into Gorey. Word went to all the shops in Gorey, you have to shoot. And we want one person from each household to follow this funeral to show you're loyal and all. So that's what happened. The shops closed. One man didn't remove his hat and he got a box in the face for himself off one of the soldiers. But in reprisal, the local army then decided, let's teach these lads a lesson.